Hey yo, man. What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, your host, Red Sky Dragon Squad. Bitch, back in another reaction. Today we are here. We're back here with new rock stars, man. Black Panther Easter eggs. Breakdown. Easter eggs references. I missed. I don't really know. I don't know too much about Black Panther. I don't. Maybe that's why I kind of wasn't mad like some of the other fans out there that was mad about the switching of the different characters, like the roles, like what they did and shit like that. Cause I was watching Jody's Corner, his review of the movie, and he was talking about how like different things were changed, but it was like it didn't matter because it was still good, But yeah, but I mean, if Marvel can make those changes, I mean, I don't know. I guess it depends because sometimes it don't really matter because the character that they switch to change, they're still good. So I don't know. Except for the Mandarin, that nigga in motherfucking Iron Man 3. Hell no, my guy. You trash, bro. But yeah, man, we just gonna see what the hell what Easter eggs they had. I know one was that armor that Michael B had was resembling to Vegeta because my nigga Michael B likes anime and shit like that. Hey, shout out to my guy. That's my guy. That's my guy. But yeah, cause I was trying to figure out like, man, that armor that shit seemed familiar, but like I wasn't like thinking about like subconsciously in the back of mind. I was like something about this armor, bro. Like, what the fuck? And then I was like, hey, like, it's like, hey, even had the throwback Vegeta colors in it. With the brown and shit like that. That shit was lit. But we finna get into this jank though, man. Irritating spectacles run this hell, man. Let's get it.
Hi, I'm Eric Voss, and
My nigga Voss,
entertaining, richly designed, must-watch Marvel movies ever. Kind of felt like Martin Freeman in this movie. Oh boy, I'm just gonna enjoy this. But if you rewatch Black Panther closely, there are a ton of subtle, interesting choices by director Ryan Coogler and his whole creative
team. Wait, hold on. Should I watch this before I watch it again? Because I finna see it again tomorrow. So
to the other films of the Marvel world. So
join
me as I uncover all of these details and Easter eggs, whatever you want to call them. And of course, spoiler warning: if you haven't seen Black Panther yet, unless you prefer to watch a movie with a nerd talking you through it. And if so, what's wrong with you? Let's get started. Okay, so this movie begins.
Yeah, I'm starting to get used to Voss though.
A story told from father to son, showing us the
I thought with the other guy though. They had like the little
slavery. And right away we get a taste
shit.
of this film's spectacular production design. Notice how this history is depicted with grains of dark sand. Hannah Beachler, the production designer, said she wanted to think about how an African nation might have evolved with vibranium-enriched soil, and that this sand would be something that links the modern-day Wakandans to their ancestors thousands of years ago. We actually see this granular vibranium show up again a few scenes later, when T'Challa uses it to display the truck convoy containing Nakia in the jungle below. This prologue firmly establishes Black Panther with its own distinct voice and identity, but also in a way it does echo past Marvel movies. The first two Thor movies, remember, opened with similar narrative prologues from a hidden world's patriarch. And
I didn't see Dark World.
To catch us up on the whole origin.
Damn.
You know, the super interesting one that we all think about all the time, like frost giants and whatnot. But then we move on.
The first one was good, bro. I don't know what niggas talking about, bro. That was good though.
Which we learned through this interesting title text on the screen. It translates from the Wakandan language into English, and I like how it translates this movie's role as translating this new Wakandan.
So they had to make their own language for this movie.
Foreign to us to something we understand. The design team created a whole new Wakandan alphabet, and like most design elements in this movie, they rooted it in ancient African traditions. In this case, these letters resemble the characters of Nsibidi, an ancient cuneiform from Nigeria. By the way, the spoken Wakandan language is Xhosa, which is a dialect known for the clicks that I'm probably not getting at all correct. It's based in South Africa. Figures like Nelson Mandela spoke it. Also, the choice to set this flashback scene in Oakland is no coincidence either. Oakland is director Ryan Coogler's hometown. It was a setting for his directorial debut, Fruitvale Station, and it has its own historical significance as the birthplace of the Black Panther Party in the 60s. Actually, if you look closely inside Njobu's apartment, there are posters for early 90s rap groups like NWA and Public Enemy, both of whom adopted many of the Black Panther Party's messages into their lyrics.
Bro. I miss Public Enemy, bro. That shit, them niggas was lit, bro.
King riots. Now, I'll talk more about how these political and cultural influences work into the character dynamics later on, but a few more interesting details I want to point out here. The actor who plays the younger version of T'Chaka is Atwanda Kani, the real-life son of John Kani, who plays the older T'Chaka. Meanwhile, the young version of Zuri is played by Denzel Whitaker, who isn't related to Forrest Whitaker, but did work with him in the movie The Great Debaters. His character describes the Dora Milaje guards outside as Grace Jones-looking chicks. Grace Jones was a Jamaican singer and actress with a similar look as to Dora Milaje. Moving on to the modern day with T'Challa rescuing Nakia in the African jungle. Here we meet Okoye, Denai Guerrera from The Walking Dead.
Michonne. No, she's just Michonne.
The makeup team designed
the Avatar tattoos.
The shape of a fighter pilot's helmet. But in addition to this militaristic look, they
why?
also gave her eye makeup to look more feline, to show her devotion to Black Panther. So later, when duty calls, ultimately her heart goes with the Panther. As T'Challa drops out of the ship, we also see the Kimoyo beads in action. Now, these are from the recent Black Panther comics by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Brian Steelfreeze. Steelfreeze designed them as a multi-purpose technology used for light communication and health and weaponry, with a look that roots them in traditional African jewelry. This particular comic series was hugely influential for this screen adaptation of Black Panther, and I'll talk more about that in a bit, but first you may have also been wondering what exactly Nakia was doing down there. Black Panther is rescuing her, but she's actually on a rescue mission of her own, saving these young women as well as a young male soldier. I think this is meant to reflect the current crisis in Western Africa, where the terrorist group Boko Haram kidnapped hundreds of Nigerian schoolgirls. The group is also known for kidnapping young boys and brainwashing them into child soldiers. So this mission establishes Nakia as more globally conscious.
Niggas look like thugs in that picture. I'm gonna drop that mixtape. What are you talking about?
Now, we will see how this philosophy puts her, in a way, on the similar side of the spectrum as Killmonger against T'Challa's isolationist mindset, and how those two will be responsible for moving T'Challa to more of a middle ground. Moving on, these three return to Wakanda, hidden in plain sight by what looks like a camouflage dome. Now, this reminds me a lot of the way the island of Themyscira was masked in Wonder Woman. Now, I'm not saying either ripped off the other, it's just that there's this interesting parallel for these two game-changing heroes from hidden utopias. Now, the city's also taking design influences from that recent Black Panther comic that I mentioned, and what made that series distinctive was the way Ta-Nehisi Coates embraced a concept called Afrofuturism.
I wonder if you could just like, what if you just wandered in the woods and you just happen to walk into that, or do you need like the shit to be able to get through?
An idealized advanced future that still embraces elements of present-day culture. So while the city contains massive futuristic skyscrapers, which by the way the design team said that they borrowed from Blade Runner, if you look closely at the tops of those skyscrapers, there are rondavels, the traditional African hut roofs. Also down on the street level, in addition to the magnetized levitation elevated train that zips through the city, there's a slower trolley that rolls around, which may have been inspired by the Bay Area trolleys that Ryan Coogler grew up with. The overall effect of this is a futuristic sci-fi world that feels like it could have plausibly evolved from an undisturbed African culture over thousands of years. Something alive and lived in and practical. Also, can we make this place a part of Disneyland already? Because I want to go to there. This Afrofuturist approach was also snuck into the design of the jet that they're flying in. If you look closely from the bottom up, this jet was made to look like an African tribal mask. With the
I've seen that too.
That gives an even deeper meaning to the looks that those boys in Oakland gave the jet as it hovered over them. T'Challa greets his mother, Queen Ramonda, played by Angela Bassett,
little sexy
and
ass.
his sister Shuri, played by Letitia Wright. And both of these characters have some very interesting design details. Notice how Ramonda wears a traditional cylindrical Zulu hat and a white circular shoulder mantle. Veteran costume designer Ruth Carter 3D printed all these, wanting the hat to look like an impressive crown from every angle, north, east, south, and west, considering several tribes would be seeing her from all sides. And she wanted the mantle to look like a setting sun behind her to reflect the state of mourning of the sun setting on her marriage. Meanwhile, Carter pointed out Shuri's interesting braids as a key reflection of her character. Notice how in every scene, Shuri's braids take a new shape, and she wears a new wardrobe.
That's actually kind of crazy. Yeah, what the fuck? When does she have time to do this shit? What the fuck?
London, where we meet Michael B. Jordan as
the GOAT,
my favorite character in this movie.
Yeah, Vegeta outfit. That shit. Oh my gosh.
So far in the MCU. His exchange with the museum curator establishes his philosophy as a villain. He isn't just motivated by revenge or power. He sees it as his mission to correct the mass oppression of his race, the pillaging of their natural resources, exploiting his ancestors themselves as resources in the slave trade, and as his father points out in the later flashback, the ongoing oppression into the modern day. And while Njadaka's aims to militarize his race with Wakanda technology to violently
the Golden Jaguar
society might be too extreme. His
yeah,
anger is
too
totally
extreme,
justified.
but I mean,
he's not crazy or wrong, he's just too extreme. And by establishing the villain with this philosophy,
that's why him and T'Challa could have, you know, they could have worked something out. They didn't have to fight.
With the debate at the heart of the civil rights movement. On one side, followers
but T'Challa didn't realize until
peaceful protests,
until
symbolic gestures. Meanwhile, followers of
later on
believed in action and fighting back against an oppressive regime, even violently if necessary. An approach N'Jadaka has definitely embraced. These themes are explored deeply in the films of Spike Lee in his Malcolm X biopic and Do the Right Thing, which, by the way, Ruth Carter designed the costumes for. This debate actually goes back to the early days of the civil rights movement, to scholars like W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, who had opposing views on the means of African-American advancement. Shout out to Dr. Dantzler on Twitter for that. The takeaway of all this is Ryan Coogler was able to use history to make the fight between the superhero and supervillain thematically important. They aren't just two men fighting over a throne, they're forces fighting over an ideal. And it's surprising how the movie answers that question. It's just one of the many reasons Black Panther is resonating with audiences so strongly. Back in Wakanda, T'Challa ascends to the throne through this ritual at Warrior Falls. Now notice how the 5 Wakandan tribes wear different wardrobes, hairstyles, and accessories. Now these all correspond to real-life African cultures. Ryan Coogler spent a month in Africa writing the script for Black Panther and doing a ton of research.
Wow,
the production designer actually created a 500-page Wakandan Bible explaining the whole design and cultural influences of the world of Wakanda.
Damn, them niggas was working on this bitch. Don't wonder why that shit came out that way. That's hella dedication, bro.
And they use wood. They're inspired by the people of Lesotho, who wear Basotho blankets. This tribe features body scarification inspired by the Mercy and Bumi tribes of Ethiopia. Then there's the River tribe, of which Nakia is a member. They wear green with shells as part of their patterns. Their leader is played by Isaac Dabankole, who wears a large lip disc piercing. Lip plating is another detail pulled from the Mercy of Ethiopia. Then there's the Merchant tribe. They wear white, inspired by Nigerian cultures. The Mining tribe wears red, inspired by the Himba tribe of Namibia, famous for treating their hair with red clay, which you can see in their leader's braids. And then there's the main Black Panther tribe. They wear black and purple, colors derived from the black vibranium colors and the purple-colored heart-shaped herb, the sources of this tribe's strength. Traditional body scarification also inspired the glowing inner lip tattoo that Wakandans have, as well as Killmonger's self-applied scars. They were pulled from the Surma tribe of Ethiopia. Now, the tribe outside these 5 is the Mountain tribe, the Jabari, led by M'Baku. He's played by Winston Duke. Now, in the comics, M'Baku is known as Man-Ape. They changed it to avoid any racial connotation, but they kept his gorilla iconography with his gorilla skull mask. Now, the production designer said that she modeled this Warrior Falls location on real-life settings like Glide Canyon, where the rocks are shelled in a way to block you in, creating a natural cage match for warriors to have nowhere to go. Moving on, T'Challa retakes the heart-shaped herb fluid from Zuri and transcends into the ancestral plane, which could be based on Djalia from the Black Panther comics. It's a realm where the living can commune with the dead. Here he communes with his past ancestors in the form of these panther spirits, as well as his father, T'Chaka. Communing with his ancestors as spirit guides is actually something Black Panther does do in the comics. Okay, let's jump ahead.
Look at that Batman in the background. I don't see that nigga. Look at Batman in the background.
She seems to be embracing Q from the 007 movies, and she just has some of the best jokes in the movie. Like when she looks down at her brother's royal sandals and screams, "What are those? What are those?" Then she gets T'Challa.
That was more funny.
That are fully automated. Like
that joke was too outdated for her to say it.
She's referencing Marty McFly's self-lacing shoes in Back to the Future Part 2. And then later on, Shuri makes another movie reference to Ross, who asks, "Is this Wakanda?" And she jokes, "No, it's Kansas." Referencing that obscure movie that I think was called, well, it's what The Wiz was based on. I don't know. I've never heard of it. Now, one of the suit designs she shows T'Challa has a gold trim, similar to the design her father wore in the opening scene. This could be a nod to the gold-trimmed Black Panther suit from the comics in the 90s.
I fuck with that cape. I fuck with the cape. I hope we can see that.
Some Wakandan runes on it. This could be a reference to the run in the comics when Black Panther moves away from vibranium technology, instead using magic as the source of his powers. Really, what I love most about this lab is the overall design of the lab.
Cool ass.
It's located inside the vibranium mine of Mount Bashenga, which is named after the first Wakandan king that we saw in the prologue. The central walkway of the lab is shaped like a spiral, almost like a giant drill that's drilling into this mountain. Actually, I should point out that all of the design of the Wakandan palace is based on circular shapes. The throne, the jets, the overall architecture, the floor layout. The designers did this to set Wakanda apart from the Mountain tribe, whose architecture features more sharp angles. The idea being that Wakanda is a more community-based union of tribes, whereas the Mountain Tribe diverges on their own angular tangent. Okay, moving on to Busan, South Korea. Now, once again, the color of the characters' wardrobes carries a lot of symbolic weight here. Nakia, T'Challa, and Okoye are wearing green, black, and red, respectively. In a breakdown of the scene that he did for Vanity Fair, Ryan Coogler said that no other characters wear red or green in the scene. He wanted these three to stand out because red, black, and green are the colors of the Pan-African flag. Martin Freeman,
I thought it was just because, you know,
Everett Ross returns here
Michonne from
at the same table as
her soldiers.
Lee, making a cameo.
They were on red, Black Panther was on black, and
Okoye has to wear a wig disguise to blend in, which frustrates her because the Laje's shaved heads is a point of pride for them. But notice how later when fighting, she pulls off the wig and tosses it in a dude's face. According to Coogler, this is an example of traditionalism versus innovation in this scene, with female characters using their femininity as a weapon. So while Okoye takes out these guys with traditional spear movements,
and I thought in Nakia's shot they were on like green and yellow and shit.
Nakia pulls off her heel and beats a guy with it. Now, the second half of this casino fight is shot in one awesome, long, extended take. This is actually a director trademark of Ryan Coogler. In the movie Creed, he shot an entire boxing match in one 4.5-minute long take. And this is super effective because it brings us into the action, having us experience all of this in real time, just like the characters are. And during this, you can hear this interesting yip vocals.
Doing a yip, like a choo, 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 choo.
This is the music of Dora Q, a group of women singers from Senegal. And at the end of this tracking shot, Ulysses Claw punctuates it by using his arm cannon to blow up the cash box, kind of like the confetti to celebrate the end of this shot. In the comics, Claw actually has a similar sonic arm cannon that fires these sonic blasts. He also at one point gets sucked into a machine and turned into a form made of entirely sound energy. Yeah, I'm glad that they didn't go too far with that. The action spills outside, leading to this great car chase through the streets of Busan. It's interesting how elaborate Shuri's mapping technology is. Not only can she control the Lexus remotely back in her lab, the lab holo projects the car's interior and the surrounding city street as it passes by all into her view. Kind of like a 3D Google Street View. Now in the scene, it just seems like some fun but probably unnecessary superhero movie tech. But like everything in this movie, everything is reused later on. All of this is put in place to set up Ross needing to use this technology later to take down the outgoing weapon cargo ships. Later, when N'Jadaka breaks Claw out of captivity, he wears that horn tribal mask that he stole from the museum earlier. This mask could be a nod to the one Killmonger wears while fighting T'Challa in Reginald Hudlin's Black Panther comic. And when N'Jadaka tosses a grenade into the room, Black Panther jumps on it to block the explosion. Now this could be another MCU nod. Of course, this is the same act of heroism that Steve
damn, I forgot all about that.
First Avenger. When they bring the injured Ross back to Wakanda, Shuri calls him another broken white boy for us to fix. This is a subtle reference to Bucky Barnes. She's setting up the Winter Soldier's cameo in the post-credit scene. Next, when T'Challa confronts Zuri in the garden about N'Jadaka's ring, we learn the truth about the opening scene. In the memory, N'Jobu rants about leaders being assassinated, communities being overly drugged and incarcerated. He's referring to the assassinations of civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and unfortunately several others. He also alludes to the mass incarceration.
Why you say like that? Unfortunately, several others.
Explored in super depth.
Oh yeah, man, that's crazy.
In her documentary 13th, which you really need to watch. Now, Zuri was described by the filmmakers as an Obi-Wan Kenobi figure during press junkets, and now having watched the movie, it's interesting to see the parallels. Both men are mystic elder figures who hide the truth from the heroes about their father's dark pasts. Also, both elders sacrifice themselves, leading each hero to let out a boyish "No!" Okay, moving on to N'Jadaka's arrival to the Wakanda throne room. Now, at this point, Michael B. Jordan has completely altered the rhythm of this movie. Whereas everyone else speaks in respectful, royal tones, his language is more casual. He greets Queen Ramonda by saying, "Hey, Auntie." I think the closest parallel to the way a villain works in a superhero movie is Heath Ledger's The Joker in The Dark Knight. Like the Joker, N'Jadaka takes over every scene that he's in. He wins over people with actual results instead of just words. And he burns this world's most precious commodity just to make a statement. Most importantly, he drives forward with the philosophy that's better defined than the hero's is. And part of us kind of wants to see him succeed, even though we know that that would be terrible. Like, yes, it's wrong for N'Jadaka to try to weaponize.
I mean, not succeed, but you know, him and T'Challa work something out, so where they both succeed.
Sort of
you feel me?
Reverse oppression. But that extremist position ultimately changes T'Challa, who is moved to step away from his isolationist ancestors toward a more open door policy, just one that's more peaceful and practical than N'Jadaka's. By the way, that's something that the Joker does too in The Dark Knight. The Joker never really changes as a character, but his extreme anarchist philosophy teaches Batman that villainous pariahs are more effective at mobilizing society to take their security into their own hands, which is why Batman takes on the role of pariah at the end of that movie. Yeah, I know I'm getting sidetracked here, so let's quickly compare Black Panther to another thing that I love. Daniel Kaluuya actually described this story as Marvel's Game of Thrones, and yeah, you can see how this royal drama echoes the interfamily rivalries.
I've never seen Game of Thrones, but I could see that.
When N'Jadaka challenges T'Challa back at Warrior Falls, he says the line, "Every breath you take is mercy from me," which is a direct quote from a Black Panther versus Namor moment in the comics. It also ends with N'Jadaka tossing him off the waterfall, which is another thing that he does in the comics. When N'Jadaka drinks the heart-shaped herb and enters the ancestral plane, he returns to the memory of losing his father. Now it's interesting how we get this shot of him cradling his father crying, and it's staged very similarly to T'Challa's memory of cradling his father's body.
True.
I think
Wow,
this
that's
meant to
crazy.
make us empathize with the villain as much as we do the hero, to force ourselves to really think about which of their philosophies is the right one. Now, if you look closely during this memory, N'Jobu's diary features this
Cooler is the GOAT, bro.
Wakanda and these coordinates. Now, this could be left behind for his young son to find and reach the homeland someday, or maybe these are the ones that he gave to Claw to break in and steal the vibranium. Anyway, if you enter these coordinates into Google Earth, they actually take you to the heart of Africa, the northeastern corner of the Democratic Republic of
Congo. I might have to.
Actually, this is
pull
almost
up
exactly where on the map that Easter egg appeared in Iron Man 2, hinting at S.H.I.E.L.'s awareness of Wakanda back then. When N'Jadaka returns to the throne room, Coogler frames it with this interesting upside-down shot. Now, this disorientation is meant to evoke how upside down this world of Wakanda has become, with this usurper now on the throne. As N'Jadaka announces his plans, he says the words, "The sun will never set on the empire of Wakanda." Now, this is a historical reference to the phrase, "the empire on which the sun never sets," originally referring to the Spanish Empire in the 1500s, which spanned several hemispheres, so that the sun was always up on some part of it. Later on, the phrase was used to describe the empires of the United Kingdom, the US, and Japan. The ex-royal family and Ross retreat to the mountains to seek the help of M'Baku, who delivers this great fake threat to Ross: "I'll feed you to my children." Just kidding, we're all vegetarians. Now, this could be a nod to M'Baku's backstory in the comics. His tribe eats the flesh and bathes in the blood of the white gorilla. But yeah, Winston Duke's version is way more relatable and way more fun. And after they revive T'Challa, all the key players confront each other in this final battle. Now, I hate to draw too many parallels between this movie and The Lion King, because guys, not all Africa stories are the same. But yeah, this Black Panther epic return from the dead to challenge the usurper moment definitely evokes Simba's return to face Scar. But really, let's be honest, they're both referencing Shakespeare's
I
Hamlet.
didn't even know that happened.
Hamlet, thought to be killed, returns from the dead,
fuck?
sort of, to face his uncle and usurper, Claudius. N'Jadaka shows his own vibranium armor, which was referred to as the Golden Jaguar suit. It's interesting how this gold trim is the exact necklace T'Challa scoffed at earlier, saying the goal was to not be noticed. But N'Jadaka embraces the idea of being noticed, because that's his whole philosophy. He doesn't want to live in secret, he wants to proudly show off his superiority. That idea was also reflected in the design of the mask. Whereas T'Challa's mask has no mouth, evoking his silence and stoicness, N'Jadaka's mask features an open, roaring mouth with gnashing teeth, implying his character's brashness. During this battle, we see the warriors of the border tribe assemble their cloaks into a shield wall. This is reminiscent of the ancient Roman soldier formation, called a phalanx, where they assembled their shields into a wall to close in on enemies and block arrow fire. We also see Black Panther take down one of the border tribe's rhinos, which is an image from the comics. Once T'Challa defeats N'Jadaka on the train platform, he brings him out to see the sunset. We actually saw T'Challa exercise this kind of mercy at the end of the Captain America Civil War with Baron Zemo.
Yeah.
But this also closes out two parts of N'Jadaka's arc. For one, it allows him to finally see the Wakandan sunset that his father promised him. But it also calls back his promise that the sun would never set on the Empire of Wakanda. Here, the sun is indeed setting on Wakanda, and N'Jadaka's empire was never meant to be. His final words are so powerful. "Bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. They knew that death was better than bondage." In a few short words, N'Jadaka links the history of the African slave trade with the mass incarceration of America today. He's reminding T'Challa that, although he lost this battle, those crimes of humanity have never truly been resolved. And you could argue that that argument ultimately wins the war. And the lessons he learns from N'Jadaka and Nakia eventually lead him back to the starting place of N'Jadaka's journey and this movie, Oakland. But now we see that T'Challa has started to make improvements. The old bottomed out milk crate has been replaced by a new hoop. And he explains to Shuri that the old project will be turned into an outreach center. Ryan Coogler is suggesting that the answer isn't violence or revenge. The answer is redirecting our energies back into the communities to bring them up with education and sharing of resources. The symmetry of this closing image was so important to Coogler that he actually moved the movie's original ending, T'Challa's powerful speech to the UN.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
instead, he leaves us
like
with
that
this,
scene like
this
that.
young boy who sees T'Challa's Wakandan ship and marvels.
Or maybe, they could have switched those.
He played the young version of Chiron in Moonlight. Here, he represents the younger generation of youths who now have a hero to look up to, and a positive example of what makes the best superheroes heroic. A question I have for you guys: for a Black
they
Panther
say nothing
sequel,
about
who
the
would you
Vegeta's
rather
jank.
follow, T'Challa or
His
another
armor.
character like Shuri or M'Baku? Comment and tell me your thoughts down below. Tweet me directly at EAVoss and follow New Rockstars on Twitter at New Rockstars for updates on our videos. And of course, subscribe to New Rockstars for more Black Panther analysis. There's really so much to talk about with this movie. Keep an eye out for more videos that we're going to do about the music of the movie, as well as our thoughts on that mystery of where the final Infinity Stone is. And if you really like us and want to help us grow, you can contribute to this channel on Patreon. Big thanks to all of our donors, especially Kenny Smith. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.
Well, I was gonna wrap it up for that though, man. But yeah, man, had a lot of insightful things in there that, you know, I didn't really see. But it had me like, man, see, that's why I fuck with New Rockstars, bro. He's like pretty much the only people that be like breaking that shit down, bro. Well, I mean, maybe they're not the only ones, but I don't know. It just seems like when they do it, it's just effective. It just hits home. You feel me? You feel me? It's lit. It's lit. Definitely a lot of stuff that I missed. The biggest one, I don't know. Well, not really the biggest one, but that red, black, and green one. I didn't really think of that until he said. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That was pretty much it. And then that post credit scene, I didn't know that was moved. That was gonna be the original ending, moved to the last part of the movie. But I could kind of see that. They ain't saying nothing about the post credit scene. I mean, maybe they put that in an extra video. I have to go check that out, man. I'm tired as hell, man. I just worked out and I got work. Damn. They got working 2 hours. That's tough, my guy. That's tough. But that's pretty much all I say about this, though, man. Y'all guys can post your comments down below. Tell me y'all thought about this. Tell me what what things they missed. And tell me which of these shocking Easter eggs references did you not know and you just learned about. Let me know in the comment section down below. But yeah, that Vegeta one, I thought they was gonna say something about that, cause it was definitely similar. Especially from the first time we seen Vegeta with the brown hair, and then the orange, and then like the navy blue, and like all the other the green and different colors, shit like that. Like I don't know, surprised that they didn't say that, but I don't know. So sometimes they be making unnecessary comparisons that they just speculate about. So that's why I was thinking like maybe they would have put that in there instead of just putting what the director said and shit like that, man. Damn, my nigga Ron Coogler was dedicated. Nigga was in Africa for a whole month writing the script. Made a 500-page Bible, bruh. That's tough. That is some real dedication. But yeah, man, like I said, post your comments down below. See what you thought about this, though, man. Leave a like if you enjoyed this, like if you didn't. Subscribe, upload every single day, so from Fridays to Sundays, and I fin me out this bitch Dragon Squad. Bitch! Signing off that way, Dexter, yeah.